Well, good evening to all our viewers out there. Welcome to the first episode of the Alberta First Pension Plan online town hall. We plan on doing these town halls every second Tuesday to discuss the benefits of an Alberta pension plan. My name is Kerry Lambert, and I'm from TheChris&KerryShow, Show, and I'll be your host for this evening's town hall. Alberta's First Pension Plan is a grassroots initiative of concerned Albertans who want to educate all Albertans on the benefit of an Alberta pension plan. Our goal is to collect 270,000 names and contact information. And once that is done, we'll begin to collect signatures within a 90-day window and present it to our Alberta provincial government and initiate a referendum on an Alberta pension plan. Things to note are we are not affiliated with any political party or a lobbyist group. We rely on donations and volunteers to get our message of an Alberta pension plan out en masse. Please consider volunteering and donating. And how do you do that? Well, let me show you. I'm going to point you right in the right where you want to go. You want to go to albertafirstpension.ca. That is the website that is currently set up for that. And really easy to navigate. There's lots of information on here. Scroll down. You can even see the town hall. If this was a live presentation, and it is, if I press this, you'd actually see us talking just like I am, but I'm not going to do that. You might be watching it on here, or you could be watching on Rumble. You might even be able to watch on YouTube. Who knows? We've also got some other information. We've got some instruction forms, a little bit more information about what we're going to be covering over this series of episodes, and essentially get to our goal of a referendum, 270,000 signatures. We also have in-person events that are going on. And so we've got one more that's this Friday in Red Deer. And one of the reasons that we're doing this maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. We've done over 70 in-person meetings all over Alberta over the past few months. And one of the most frequent comments that we get is, can you hold an online meeting? And so exactly that's what people are requesting that we do, because people are busy and it's the summer, and our summer in Alberta only lasts like maybe 2 or 3 months. So people need to go outside and do stuff. But if we schedule these every second Tuesday, maybe we'll be able to catch some people. They'll be able to ask questions, as well as you can always put more questions, send us questions right to the website, and we'll be able to do that. And we are taking an in-person break with our speakers over the summer. But one thing that we can do is we can still use volunteers to get the word out. If you have suggestions on markets or community events, etc., where we can set up a table or walk around and give information out, please let us know. You can also email us at albertafirstpension@gmail.com. You can also go on the website. There is a contact form here. You can go on the contact form and send us comments or questions through the website as well. This is a live town hall, so we encourage you to ask questions, make comments throughout this presentation. And you can always put 3 question marks before your questions, so will be flagged. And before I actually do that, one more thing I want to show you guys. If you go to, this is the whole point of this. If you go to the website and you go sign up now, it will take you to where we actually want you to sign up. These are the contact information. This is the 270,000 contact information that we want. We want you to put your name, email, etc. You can also volunteer as well here if you want to do that. There you go. And the idea behind that is then this gets put into a giant database. And then we take that database when we know we have 270,000 people ready to go. We'll be able to contact you and actually go out and get wet signatures. And the idea behind a wet signature is you actually have to write it on a specific form that's set up. And with that, we'll be able to present that to our provincial government in order to get the referendum on an Alberta pension plan. So once again, all you have to do, I'm just going to go back and do it again one more time, because I'm going to give you guys a task tonight. So if you're watching on your phone, this might be a little more difficult, but if you're watching on a laptop or a computer of some sort, go to the sign up now again. And what I want you to do is go into the URL up here. That's fancy word speak for basically the address where this page is hosted. And I want you to either copy this. You can copy it by right-clicking, or you can use this little icon over here. Usually it's on all browsers, and you can copy that link. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take that link and email it to at least 10 people that you know. That's all you have to do. 10 people. I think we all know 10 people. Email that. And if you don't like emailing, copy that and text it to them. But if you're going to be texting it to them, the other thing that I should say is you can also put in a note that says something along the lines of this. Actually, I'm just going to copy this and then paste it into the comments here. And then that way you guys can copy and paste it directly if you're watching this live. And if you're not, that's okay too, because what I'm going to do is just put this right into the front here. Do you want the Alberta government to give you a choice on an Alberta pension plan? And that is the link right there, albertafirstpension.nationbuilder.com/join. And if that's too much, then you can always just go to albertafirstpension.ca. But the important thing is to say, do you want the Alberta government to give you a choice on an Alberta pension plan? We're going to be talking about what those words actually mean with our guest speakers that are going to be coming up here. We have two great people who have been coming out and doing these in-person meetings for the Alberta First Pension Plan. First is Tanner Hnidey, who's an economist. He runs his own podcast, his own channel under tannerhnidey.com. We also have Mitch Sylvester, who is the head of Alberta First Pension. He'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But first, I'm going to bring up Tanner, and he's got a bit of a presentation that we're going to be doing. Hello.
Hi, Kerry. How are you?
Excellent.
How do I sound? How do I look?
You sound amazing, and your hair looks amazing too.
Oh, thank you. I wish if I could do the frosted tip look like you, I would, but I can't rock it.
Well, that's
I wish.
An ancient Lambert secret. So, in terms of how we want to do this, so again, just for the people that maybe are joining us right now, we're going to be doing a series of these over, I don't even know how many. We're basically going to go probably all through the summer, but every second Tuesday, because Tanner is available on Tuesdays, and I know we're going to have some other guests on here, and it seems to work out really well for a Tuesday. And if you can't make it live, by all means, you can always go and watch for these episodes. They will be on the albertafirstpension.ca, as well as on Rumble, YouTube, X, etc. And with that, I'm just going to say to Tanner, so I know you've prepared a presentation. And you have done many presentations. You've probably done over 50 presentations for Alberta First Pension, and you've been all over the province as well.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. I've so enjoyed it.
It's great getting out there and actually having conversations with people too. But of course, that didn't work for everybody, which is the whole point of us doing these online town halls. So with that, I'm going to, maybe for the people that don't know who you are, maybe just do a brief 30 seconds of who you are, how you got involved, if that can be done in 30 seconds.
Sure. Oh, yeah. That's a good question. Well, my name is Tanner Hnidey, like you mentioned. And just as a brief overview, I'm an economist. I received my degree from the University of Calgary. And when I graduated, just as a consequence of the lockdowns and so on, I started a bunch of social media pages in which I would take those economic lessons I learned and I would apply them to what was happening in the present day. Well, the Lord's blessed that, and He's allowed it to grow and flourish. And because of that, I'm now able to travel across the province speaking about these economic issues. I have my own consulting company. It's called Tanner Hnidey Incorporated. And groups or companies or individuals or even political parties for that matter, because I have no affiliation, will hire me out to talk about economics. It's very exciting. And so, of course, lately, I've been traveling all across the province like you, talking about the pension plan and what that might look like for Alberta.
That's right. Yes. And again, there's kind of two sides to the Alberta pension plan, and I could be corrected on this, but there's the economic benefits of Alberta doing its own pension plan. And then there's also the political benefits of doing that too. And I know we'll have other guests on in the series to talk about that. But I think for you right now, you just want to talk a little bit about the economics.
Yeah, let's start with that. Sure. Like you were saying, I've prepared that presentation. I sent you a few points, but just in the interest of time, I think we'll just focus on the first point tonight.
Okay.
I think that'll work best because we can talk about that for a little while. And it's the point I want to talk about tonight is one of the most common questions we have, and certainly one of the most common concerns that people across the province have. And so I actually just sent you a little link in the chat there. And I think if we can pull that up during the presentation, we'll talk about what's on that link, what's on that page, as exciting as it is, because pensions are so exciting.
Do you want to do that link first? Sorry,
let's do that. That would be just perfect. And you know what? If we did that now, I could get right into the presentation.
That sounds amazing. Let's do that.
Perfect.
Look at this is live, people. So you can always, like I said, you can always send us questions and comments. Put 3 question marks before, and then that way I know exactly what's going on. And with that, there is the link to that you just
perfect. Sent. Oh, look at how exciting! Look at how
that's pretty dry.
Look at how interesting. Hey.
They almost make it dry on purpose, don't they?
I agree. They do. And see, so we've brought up this link tonight because I want to just quickly here in the time that I have talk about this concern of what would happen to my pension, my Canadian pension plan, if Alberta started its own pension, right? The main concern, I think this is probably the most common concern. It's certainly what the NDP and the left try to scare Albertans with. The most common concern is my pension, if we have an Alberta pension plan, will be ripped away from me, right? If Alberta starts its own pension plan, the concern is that those who were formerly receiving CPP benefits would either see those benefits vanish entirely, or if the benefits didn't vanish entirely, they'd be substantially reduced. And so, of course, this is the campaign, keep your hands off our pension, right? Don't touch our Canadian pension plan. We have solid returns right now. And if we get our own Alberta pension plan, this is the worry, then, of course, all of those CPP benefits, this is what the NDP are saying, would vanish. They go away. And so seniors would be left off in a worse position than what they are right now. And soon to be or will be seniors would be entering a worse financial position than what they otherwise would be with the Canadian pension plan. So this is the main concern, I think, with an APP. It's certainly one of the most common concerns, and we talk about it often. So tonight I thought I'd bring it to attention just to see if we can answer whether or not that concern is warranted, legitimate, and whether we have a solution to it. Is there a way we can satiate the concern? So, I think you look at the economy right now, and you look at the way the country is moving. Economically, you look at the cost of everything, right? You look at the cost of groceries. You and I look at the cost of gasoline, right? We look at the cost of housing. All of these costs, these necessary costs that we have to pay in order to live, are increasing. And they're not increasing by a little bit. Like, they are skyrocketing, right? They are soaring. It's unbelievably difficult to live in this country right now as a consequence of all of these economic issues. Now, it's difficult enough for individuals like yourself or myself who are still working, right, and who are making money and hopefully,
in theory, making raises every year, and maybe being able to do a side job if you have to. I don't know how many people I've talked to that are now doing side jobs.
Absolutely, right. The theory is you're making money, but more and more people are working 2 jobs or 3 jobs to try and make ends meet. Now, nevertheless, they're still able to work, and so they are able, at least to some extent, they can increase their production capacity and therefore increase their amount of earning. Okay, so it's difficult enough for those individuals to live. That's hard enough right now. But then you think about seniors who are on fixed incomes. They're not working anymore. They're done working. They've retired. And they don't have the physical capacity, and tragically, sometimes they don't have the mental capacity anymore to work in jobs that they used to be able to work in. And so their incomes are stagnant, right? Their incomes are not dynamic. They are static. So even as cost increases in the country, the senior's income on the whole does not increase. It might change a little bit, of course, if he sells his or her house or something. But when you look at the average over how many years, it's flat, right? It's relatively flat. So this doesn't mean that they're doing as well as they were, or excuse me, this means they're not doing as well this year as they were last year, right? Because you have inflation that's rising. You have incomes that are stagnant, seniors' incomes that are stagnant. And so they are unable to purchase as many goods with the money that they have this year compared to last year. So obviously, in this economy, then, it is absolutely critical that seniors are given what they were promised in years prior. I mean that financially, right? If they were promised $10 in the year 2024, and that promise was made to them in, I don't know, 2000, then when the year 2024 comes, right now, they should be given that $10 because that was the promise that was made to them. Now, the same is true with pensions, right? Seniors, and all Canadians for that matter, with the Canadian Pension Plan have been promised their pensions, right? They've been promised that when they retire, when they choose to do so, when they pull their pension, it will be there for them. And they're able to collect, a certain sum of money every single month to help pay for groceries, gasoline, rent, and so on and so on. Thus, to remove that, to rip it away from seniors, to take that pension plan, that Canadian pension plan, and the check that seniors receive every month, to rip that away would be totally immoral. It'd be unthinkable, right? There would be absolutely no way that anyone rational would even consider proposing such a program. It would be immoral, it would be cruel, and it would leave our seniors, if indeed their incomes, their Canadian Pension Plan or APP, did decrease, it would leave them in so much a worse position than what they're in right now. But that defeats the entire purpose of an Alberta pension plan, right? We are pushing for it because we want to see people economically better off than what they are right now. So all that to say, there is the concern that if I had my CPP turned into an APP, then my check would either disintegrate or it would be substantially reduced. Okay, that's the concern. And in my opinion, after that little discussion, that concern is warranted insofar as we need our pension checks to live, or seniors need their pension checks to live. They have every right to make sure that their pensions are secure and stable. And they have every right to wonder and to investigate whether or not a new pension plan, in this case an Alberta pension plan, would reduce the size of their checks. So that's the concern and that's the question. Now, if we go back to that very exciting document online, this is from the Canadian Pension Plan Act. This is online, as you can see. It's available free for anyone.
Actually, I'll put the link in the comments in case anybody does want to take a look at it with us.
Perfect. That'd be fantastic. And what I've linked here is just to Section 3 of the Act. So there are, a multitude of sections in this document, this very exciting document. But in particular, for this question, the answer or the solution comes in Section 3 of the entire document. So this is the Canadian Pension Plan document. And we are going to go through very quickly, or relatively quickly, just what the Act says regarding a province that starts its own pension plan in lieu of the Canadian Pension Plan. So this does apply to Alberta starting its own Alberta Pension Plan. So we see at the start, Section 3, subsection 1, in this Act, a province providing a comprehensive pension plan means a province prescribed by a regulation made on the recommendation of the minister and blah, 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 right to Section 8. All we mean to say is legally, a province can have its own pension plan. There's nothing illegal about Alberta saying we would like our own pension plan. We want to change from the CPP to an APP. That's totally legal. Now, we'll notice in Section A that quickly it says, the government of which has, on or before May 3rd, 1965, which is when the CPP started, that government which has signified the intention of that province, in this case Alberta, to provide for the establishment and operation in that province, in lieu of the operation of this act, of the CPP, of a plan of old age pensions and supplementary benefits, providing for the making of contributions thereunder, commencing with the year 1966, and providing, notice, for the payments of benefits thereunder comparable to those provided by this act. Okay, so there are other definitions too below. But what we want to see here is when you translate all of that legalese, which again is a very exciting task to undertake.
Yes, for sure.
When you translate all of that legalese, in essence, it says this: legally, a province can have its own pension plan. It can have its own pension plan in lieu of a Canadian pension plan or the Canadian pension plan, but it must have its own pension plan in lieu of the Canadian pension plan, and it must provide benefits that are comparable to those provided by this act. Now, I know that an individual could say, well, wait a second, it just says that the benefits have to be comparable. So theoretically, you could decrease the size of pension checks for seniors with an Alberta pension plan compared to a CPP and still have it meet the list of regulations and codes. But the answer is actually no, you can't, right? Firstly, Comparable is another legalese word. It practically means identical. And secondly, think firstly about the federal government. Even really, no matter what federal government's in power, but right now it's the Liberals. We know that the Liberals don't want Alberta to have its own pension plan. We know that for a fact, obviously. And it seems to be that many governments across the country agree. So suppose that Alberta decided to try, even just try, and promote or present the idea that seniors' pension checks with an APP would decrease by 10%. I don't know, it's some random number.
Yeah.
You and I know instantly the federal government would go right to Section 3 here, to subsection A, and say those benefits are not comparable to the CPP. Therefore, you cannot have your own Alberta pension, right? So clearly, the benefits have to be the same as the CPP, if not better than the CPP, for us to have our own Alberta pension plan. And that's true politically in Alberta as well. Like if you had a government, a provincial government, that decided to, in this act of, bold and brash maneuver, decrease the size of the pension checks for seniors from the CPP's numbers to an APP, right? That government, rightfully so, would be annihilated in the next election. And they would deserve it, right? For them to, at one point, know that seniors were promised a sum of money to prepare for the future. And then, now that the future is here, to rip that money away from them would be totally immoral and cruel, and would be deserving of losing in the next election. Okay, so that section itself, subsection A there, is critical. And it really does, when you think about it, practically answer our question. Would my pension be reduced or would it be ripped away? Well, the answer is no, right? Because if you don't have the Canadian pension plan in a province, you must have an Alberta pension plan in the case of Alberta. It's not as though the government can say, we're leaving the CPP and nothing is being provided in its place. It doesn't follow the conditions here of Section 3 of this Act, right? It's not as though Danielle Smith, or I guess now Hnidey, or whatever premier or cabinet it might be, can say, we're leaving the CPP and we are going to provide seniors with a 50% reduction in their new Alberta pension plan benefits compared to the CPP. Again, it doesn't meet that condition of being comparable to the benefits provided in, quote, this Act, or at least with the Canadian pension plan. Now, of course, if we want, we can continue scrolling up and down this entire document, look at subsection B. The government of, a province providing a comprehensive pension plan is the government of which has, at any time after May 3rd and so on, given notice in writing to the Minister of Employment to actually establish a pension plan. Once again, saying there has to be an establishment of one. There has to be an Alberta pension plan in place of a Canadian pension plan. And again, it must provide, you can see here at the bottom of that paragraph before Section 2, a comprehensive pension plan in place of the CPP. So, all that to say, we are correct, or no, more accurately, all Albertans are correct to say, okay, would an Alberta pension plan reduce the size of my pension check? That is an excellent question to ask in any economy, let alone this inflated economy. And considering that money is the pension money is derived from all the years of contributions from these individual workers, they do have very obviously a right to say, what will happen with my money with an Alberta pension plan? Will the size of my check be reduced? Well, let's begin with, will we have an Alberta pension plan at all? Will I have a pension check at all? And the answer is absolutely yes. One, because this Act says so and is very clear about it. And two, because of the political fallout that would occur if a government decided to reject entirely a new pension plan. Secondly, the question is, would my pension benefits be reduced if we had an Alberta pension plan? Once again, we can read the Act, and the Act says very clearly, no. The province that decides legally, again, as we have the legal right to do, to leave the Canadian pension plan must here, as we can read, provide a pension in lieu of, or a pension plan in lieu of the Canadian Pension Plan Act. And according to subsection A, it must have benefits, the payment of benefits thereunder, that are comparable to those provided by the Canadian Pension Plan. Does that mean, well, about the same, maybe a little bit lower? No, it doesn't. If that was the route the province even considered going, right away, instantaneously, the federal government would absolutely invoke this section of the act and say, you are not abiding by the law. You are not abiding by the rules of this law, which state the benefits have to be comparable, right? Because again, we know the feds don't want us to leave, right? We know the federal government, the federal bureaucracy, the CPP itself does not for 1 second want Alberta to leave the pension plan, the Canadian pension plan. And so it's going to do absolutely everything in its power to keep us in it. That means if we try and reduce benefits, not that we want to, but if there were a malevolent government that tried to do so, immediately the federal government would jump in, and the courts for that matter, and the act and so on, and say you're not abiding by the laws. You cannot therefore have an Alberta pension plan. So these facts combined to satisfy at least my curiosity, right? When I asked the question, would an Alberta pension plan reduce the size of benefits for Alberta seniors, or will be Alberta seniors? Would it reduce the size of their pension checks or eliminate their pension checks entirely? The answer is no, manifestly not, right? On the contrary, if the benefits are reduced, we can't have an Alberta pension plan. If the pension checks are rejected or are more accurately destroyed, and so seniors don't get them anymore at all, we certainly can't have a pension plan. The CPP would just continue. It would be as though an Alberta pension plan were never formed. So that satisfied my curiosity, and I think then the answer is very clear. Is there a need to be afraid that an Alberta pension plan would reduce my pension checks? No, there isn't. On the contrary is true. There is a reason to be excited about the economic benefits that accrue from an APP, but there's no need to worry about reducing the size of your checks or eliminating your pension entirely.
So to reiterate this again, being comparable according to the act it's exactly the same as it would be as though it was a CPP going on anyways.
Yes.
But now it's in Alberta.
Yes, practically identical. This again, and you have to look at the federal government really to understand why, right? If Alberta says, if the Alberta government says, we're going to reduce the size of your pension benefits, we're going to reduce them by 10%. So if you were earning $1,000 every month in CPP, now it's going to be $900. You and I know the federal government, because that word comparable is so wishy-washy, they would jump in instantly and say, these benefits are not comparable. The Alberta pension plan benefits are not comparable to the Canadian pension plan because they're smaller than what the Canadian pension plan provides, and so you cannot leave the act. So we take the fact that the federal government does not want us to leave the Canadian pension plan, combined with the fact that they very specifically used the word comparable in that short paragraph, and combine those two together to say, unless the Alberta pension, is practically identical in structure, and unless it guarantees the same benefits or better than what we have right now with the Canadian pension plan, we won't be allowed to leave the Canadian pension plan. The federal government would use that to their advantage to keep us in the CPP. So you're exactly correct.
Okay. So just for the viewers, again, it's comparable, meaning it's basically the same. However, we could actually get something better, couldn't we?
Yes. And we can talk about that, whether in the next one or whenever you want. But yes, there are certainly economic benefits to capture, which is one of, if not the largest reason for pursuing our own Alberta pension plan. And the economic benefits here aren't just small, right? They're not just minuscule benefits. No, they are massive, right? They are huge benefits that are created because of a variety of different factors that we enjoy, demographic advantages and so on in the province. So yes, there are certainly benefits to capture. Absolutely. This isn't just an objective with a small goal. No, the goal is massive. The objective is huge. And if done correctly, the outcomes will be remarkable. Excellent.
Yeah. So do you maybe just want to, obviously we're going to be talking about this over a series of episodes, but maybe just to whet the appetite of our viewers, do you want to maybe just say one or two benefits which could possibly happen with an Alberta pension plan being here that is comparable or better than a CPP?
Sure. Well, just for a little teaser. Firstly, with an Alberta pension plan, and again, we'll talk about demographic advantages and so on later down the line. But with an Alberta pension plan, working Albertans, and also their employers would see Alberta's contribution rates, which is really just a tax, but the contribution levels to the Alberta Pension Plan, they'd be slashed significantly.
Okay.
So right now, workers pay 5.95%-ish of their, not ish, it is 5.95% of their income check to the Canadian Pension Plan, up to a certain amount in the 60s of thousands. And their employer matches that. So after a while, that's a lot of money when you think about it.
Yeah.
With an Alberta pension plan, however, because of, again, these advantages that we'll talk about later, we have the opportunity to slash those contribution rates without sacrificing benefits, because if we do, we can't have the plan.
Okay.
So without sacrificing benefits for elderly Albertans, we can slash the size of contributions for individual Alberta workers. So that, you could save as an individual $1,000 a year. That's not even the highest number that's been estimated. That is a conservative estimate to say each Alberta worker, not every family, but every Alberta worker could save $1,000 every year just on the savings that accrue from cut contribution rates or cut tax rates. So that's the first, right? That's the first economic benefit. Yeah. And the second, of course, obviously pertains to seniors, right? Again, because of that demographic advantage, one of which being we're younger. Alberta has for decades, literally since the CPP has started, except for a very short string of years in the 90s. Alberta has contributed more to the Canadian Pension Plan than what our seniors have received back, right? And it's not like it's been a little amount. No, we've contributed literally billions every year, more. Billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars more are sent to Ottawa every year, are sent to the CPP every year from Alberta than what our seniors receive back. So with an Alberta pension plan, one, because of the cut contribution rates, one, because of our ability to, if we'd like, change the structure a little bit pertaining to contributions and payout rates and so on, we have an opportunity here to increase the size of pension checks for seniors and do so substantially, because we have such a huge surplus remaining at the end of every, what would you say, fiscal CPP term, if I can, use that, make up that word. Yeah. We have such a huge surplus remaining that we do have an opportunity here to increase the size of seniors' checks, right? And increase them again significantly. Wow. So the latest data shows that Alberta sent some $9 billion and it received some $6 or $6.5 billion back, right? So on the average, let's say that Alberta sends $2.5 or $3 billion more to the CPP every year than what our seniors receive back from the CPP. Well, if we kept that in Alberta, think of what we could do with that $3 billion. Suppose we change nothing. We keep the contribution rates the same and we keep the payout rates the same for seniors, okay? Yeah. We have now, therefore, $2.5 or $3 billion extra for the Alberta Pension Plan to do with it what it wants at the end of every, again, fiscal year. Yeah. Whether that means paying out seniors to a far larger extent than what they are right now, or investing it, or investing part of it and paying out seniors with the rest, whatever it might be. It's up to Albertans to choose. But the point remains, there are huge benefits to capture. These are just two. There are numerous others that we'll talk about later.
For sure. And just because you did open that door for discussion, you said Albertans would get to choose. How would that happen if we were able to choose? Would that go through a referendum, or would that be just...
Yeah, and Mitch can talk a little bit more about this too, as I know he's more seasoned in it. But nevertheless, of course, Danielle Smith is going to, or has signified her intent to have a referendum just on the pension plan itself.
That's right.
About whether or not Albertans want an Alberta pension plan. So she's done that to start. And then once that referendum happens and is successful, then it will be up to Albertans to make their voices known about what exactly they want to see the pension look like. That is, do we want higher payouts for seniors? Do we want cut contribution rates? Do we want a hybrid of both? Do we want more investment? Whatever it might be, right? It would be incumbent and is incumbent on all of us as individuals in the province to exercise our democratic principles and democratic rights and become involved in this particular process. We have an opportunity to do so. And if we don't, then we have really no right to complain if we don't like the way it's structured. Right? If we don't exercise our rights and if we don't tell the government exactly what we want, then we have no reason to say, I'm upset. I don't like the way this is being implemented when it actually comes. But if instead we do exercise our democratic principles and become involved in that process, whether it means demanding a referendum or just speaking with MLAs and calling on the phone with MLAs or whatever it might be. If we don't do that, we have no reason to be upset. If we do engage in that activity of democracy, then we will certainly see a pension plan which much more closely reflects the desire of Albertans.
You're right. And it's so much easier for us to go to Edmonton and complain about how things are being done and for us to drive out to Ottawa and do the same thing. So being closer to home, it definitely has an advantage just there.
Yes, absolutely it does. Absolutely it does.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Tanner. I'm going to push you to the back now, and I'm going to bring Mitch on, and then we will bring you back on, and we'll answer some of the questions that are going to be coming up. So thanks again, Tanner. Now I will bring on Mitch Sylvester. Mitch, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Kerry?
Excellent. Thank you. So kind of posing the same question that I did for Tanner, maybe you can let our viewers know who you are and more specifically how you got involved with the Alberta First Pension Plan.
Well, I'm a businessman. I'm sitting in my office. I'm still working. I'm a businessman in Bonneville. How I got involved with politics at all was that they tried to close my store down, and they did. And Canadian Tire and Walmart and all the big players that have large customer bases, bigger than mine, of course, were still running. So I thought that wasn't fair. So away I went.
Yeah.
And I have been at it ever since. To tell you the honest to God truth, I was never political, didn't know the left from the right. And I say that often, but I literally did not 3 years ago. So, but I am a businessman, and that brings me to why I'm doing Alberta First Pension, because it's all about money. And it's about money for Alberta. It's about money for our people. It's nonpartisan as far as I'm concerned. You can try and make it partisan if you like, but I think everybody wants to have more money. So that's basically why I'm doing this.
Okay, great. And of course, you've been going out and doing these pension meetings as well. I know you've done well over 50.
Yeah, I started a couple months ago. Put 25,000 kilometers on my truck since then, and I've been all over Alberta, met lots of people. But what I see all over the province is once they hear the actual facts, we're getting basically 100% of the people that are in favor of this.
I will absolutely agree with that. The ones that I've been to, it's amazing. You always ask the question, and you can virtually ask the same question here. How many people are, collecting a pension right now or have gone through that process, and, hands up kind of thing that if people are. And people are concerned about what's happening with their CPP. And especially more concerned about, what's the process in terms of getting the money back into Alberta and being an Alberta pension plan. And you do a great presentation in these meetings to basically let people know what the process is and how things are going. So I don't know if that's really what you want to talk about today.
Well, I can talk about that. I could talk about what I'd like to do, though, is I'd like to bring up a couple of the real tangible benefits that Tanner left out. Well, we know that we overcontribute or contribute $3 billion a year more. Just a case in point there, that's not included in our transfer payments, that's extra. Okay. So that adds to the amount of money, the more money that we contribute to Ottawa that we could leave here for our own people, based on the fact that we contribute more and will continue to do so. But the other big benefit is that when this act was drawn up in the 60s, Ontario was a big player, and Ontario wanted to make sure that should it choose to leave the Canada Pension Plan, it could leave the Canada Pension Plan with the money it invested, or the money that it overpaid, plus the interest accrued, and that should be the case for everybody. So it's basically like a prenup, so that everybody could leave when they choose to, with the money that would be theirs had they not been involved in CPP. Now, Quebec also has never been in CPP. So it wouldn't be, there is a province out there that does not belong to Canada Pension by its own choice. And at the beginning of that, I think everybody decided that they would like to have that choice given the choice. Okay. But the provincial government actually commissioned a report by LifeWorks to see how much money the pension fund actually owes Alberta. And it was done by Monroe Chappelle, LifeWorks, and the number is $335 billion. Mm-hmm. Now, please understand that that's a massive, massive asset.
Yeah.
And it's based on the formula as it was written by the government of Ontario and the rest of the provinces to be sure that it was fair for everyone should they choose to leave. So what we're seeing here now is a real massive opportunity for Alberta to transfer a substantial asset here and leave the principal sit there. And in as little as 8 years, it could double to $670 billion. And that being the case at the current interest rate, it would literally bring in $66 billion a year, which is basically 10 times what we pay our seniors right now in benefits.
Yes.
So
right.
What would also happen there, you alluded to earlier, is it would decentralize power. It would send power back here. There's 337 MPs, of which 34 to 37 are from Alberta. Alberta split up into 87 CAs with 87 MLAs, which is much more representative of the people.
Yeah.
It's much easier to talk to your MLA, much easier for us to keep an eye on it if it's here rather than it's there. I'm also going to commission, get somebody to give me a report on actually how much Alberta overpays in every single thing, like EI and, CPP being two of them.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah.
To see, in addition to what we already give in transfer payments, it would be really nice to see how much Albertans overcontribute. And maybe we don't have to take it all back, but it would be very nice to take this back. Just saying. And I see old people that are getting average $760 a month pension checks. And Tanner alluded to the fact that the prices are going up and up and up. If we just use that $3 billion surplus that we contribute every year, we could give our pensioners basically a $3,000 a year raise.
You're right.
And, every one of them. And there's a lot of them that need it. Many of those that don't. It would be wonderful in my mind to see these people, oh, keep your hands off my pension and stuff. If it, it would be wonderful to have an opt-out. Like, I think that would be a good deal. It's not going to happen. But if those people were not happy and they decided to stay with the CPP, I think we should give them a one-shot option to stay that way and or donate it back if they didn't want the excess money. It seems ridiculous to me, but at any rate, this is definitely going to make Alberta better in every way, shape, or form. It's going to give us the ability to give our people more money. It's going to give us the ability to have more power over our sovereignty, and sovereignty meaning whatever government is empowered to control the area that it's in control of or represents. Yeah. So that's what we're looking for there. But the other thing, we know that this is such a big benefit because they're trying to change the rules on us now. Mm-hmm. The same thing they did in the Jason Kenney thing when Jason was sure that he was going to lose. His only option was to change the rules. And now the NDP is after changing the rules on this. Heather McPherson is going to introduce a private member's bill, or has introduced a private member's bill. Now, just understand, nobody in the federal government wants.
She's an MP in Edmonton.
She's an MP in Edmonton. Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody in the federal government wants this money to come here. The Conservatives don't want it. The NDP certainly don't want it. And even though the NDP federally is connected to the provincial NDP, they don't want people from Alberta apparently to have more money. But what I'm saying is that the Conservatives don't want it either. They want to stay in control of that large sum of money. Well, it gives them options. It gives them things that they can do, as it would Alberta. It would give Alberta different options. Not that the government should be involved with the pension plan, but the pension board, given the opportunity to invest it in Alberta into something that is not green or DEI or anything like that, could choose to do so. Whereas right now, they cannot do so. So therefore, they're flat out attacking the government of Alberta. And right now, we are right in the middle of the federal government introducing Bill C-59, which our government calls illegal, and it's actually called the federal government lawless, but it's another attack on Alberta. So what we're saying, and they're attacking our oil industry, which employs a lot of people, and the majority of the people that live here, where I live. So we're particularly sensitive to that. So what I'm saying is that we can take this pension plan back, pay our people more money, invest our money in places that may help Alberta if the money works for the pension plan, 100%. It would have to be something that pays as well or better than what their other options would be, but at least it wouldn't be limited to something that is not that. So we could grow our industry here. So basically, I think there's any report that I've ever written, read, or had anything to do with, they've all agreed that this is a benefit for Alberta.
Okay. So you brought up a couple of points, and again, this is a series, so we don't have to touch on all of them in this episode, but you did mention the $335 billion that basically we've over contributed, or basically we've contributed and then built up an interest. That's our portion of the CPP that should be brought back into Alberta. Mm-hmm. Do we have to wait until that happens, or are they going to come back and say, well, that 335, the way we've looked at it, it's now only 200? Do we have to wait until all that happens?
Well, it's a 3-year period to move it over, first of all. So we all understand that 335 billion is not just going to be transferred from the federal government to us. They're just going to take that to court. They're going to try and drag this out as long as they want. They're trying to change the rules, so they're obviously not wanting to give the money. They're supposed to come up with a number this fall. I'm sure the number is going to be ridiculously low, and then it's going to have to go to court. But the process needs to be started. Mm-hmm. Do we need it? Absolutely not. We overcontribute by $3 billion a year. We're going to get some large part of that fund. Like that money is going to come. The lowest we've ever heard is somewhere in the neighborhood of $125 to $150 billion, which is still a substantial amount of money. Okay. So even, not that we should settle for that if the real number is 335 billion, which really Bill Marneau knew what that number, the kind of angst or the kind of conversation that number was going to start. Yeah. And they looked at that number. They looked at that number carefully before they put that number out there. And I have personally talked to another actuary, and I said to him, how close is that number? He said, well, first of all, they put their name on it, and these people are very, very professional people. So if they put their name on that number, that's very close to the number, or it is the number. So the odds are that Alberta is owed $335 billion, and it would help make Alberta a much richer, better place.
Oh, for sure. And especially we've said a few times already that we over contribute $3 billion each year as it is set up right now.
As we do in EI, as we do in a lot of other things. Plus, we contribute somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know how much we give in transfer payments. 7, 10, 12, 16 billion, somewhere in that range. I don't Quebec gets $6 billion a year from us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, then that's good. And I guess one other thing that I would definitely mention, because you did bring it up, is that Ontario, when they were basically brought into the CPP, they wrote in their document saying, if things don't work out, then we need to be able to pull our money back, right? And that's basically how this is done. But another important note is that Quebec, who's had their own pension plan since day one, has never said to the CPP, you know what, I think I like what you guys are doing better than us, so why don't we join you?
No.
That has never happened either.
No, that's never happened, and it would never happen here either. Okay. Alberta would do it better. There's no question in my mind, and that would be the point of it. The point of it is we're not doing all this work for status quo or to have the same thing, a parallel system. What we're doing is we're working for future generations, and that money will be there for future generations. Yeah. And that's the idea of it. The idea of it, we're working for ourselves here, and we're going to make ourselves better.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. Well, then with that, I'm going to bring Tanner back on, and we're going to answer some of the questions. Hello, Tanner.
Hi.
Again. So, a few questions anyways. We're going to try and keep this to be about an hour long. That way it's easy to digest these over the course of a week or 2 weeks, so that when someone comes on, maybe they've thought of another question. Dorothy has basically just said, do you know what the actual amount of money that's invested in CPP? And if you don't mind, I'm just going to start off with a small little bit of information that a lot of people don't really realize how CPP works. So you take your money, and if it was an RSP, as an example, you'd be able to take your own money and invest that and do whatever you want. You have a financial advisor, blah, blah, blah. It grows But that's a pool of money that is mine. And eventually it gets to a certain point where I can start taking money out and, obviously you pay taxes on it, but that pool of money is mine. CPP doesn't work that way. The CPP is basically the money that goes into the CPP. Tanner will help me out on this one. Comes out almost immediately as well, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just sending you another link here, Kerry.
Okay, good.
This will have a bunch of info. But yes, you're correct. It's CPP was designed this way, is predominantly what's called a pay-as-you-go system, where as much money as is sent to the CPP is sent out to pay for seniors and to pay for seniors' pension checks. It means there is only a little bit of money, and when I say a little bit, I mean a few billions of dollars. So a lot of money for most of us, but a little bit for government. There's a little bit of money left over when all is said and done that the CPP then uses to obviously fund its investment pile. That is, the billions that are left over after each, pension fiscal year are then sent to the Canadian Pension Plan Investing Board for the Canadian Pension Plan Investing Board to invest, and then over time, build up a pile of investment income. So if we go to that CPPIB website, that link, it says that the latest numbers are out, and the latest numbers show that the fund's net assets, as of, in this case, what are we at now? March, April. So April, they've just updated this, is $632.3 billion. So at the start of the year, it was $595 billion. Now it's up to $632 billion. This also shows us the net rates of return, the nominal rates of return, 10-year annualized rate of return, and so on and so on. So there is the number. It's, again, available. Most of this information, these are very good questions, but most of the information is available online, right? So the number is $632 billion. Now, again, we have to take it on trust that the CPP is giving us accurate data and that the numbers themselves are accurate. And that's a different topic entirely about the lack of transparency with the CPP. But supposing those numbers are accurate, the fund has generated $632 billion. Very good question.
Okay. So that's kind of the amount of money extra per year that has been invested, and basically makes that interest rate on it. We'll just say 10% just because the math is easy. You say on 600 billion, 10%, you'd be making $60 billion a year.
Right. Yes. Okay. So you have the fiscal return there, right? And then the 10-year annualized return. So we often look at the 10-year annualized return over the individual year return. And the reason for that is just because the fund is large and it's a long-term pension plan. Yeah. And so that 10-year annualized net return, the nominal return, means if you take a look at 10 years of CPP performance, on the average, it will have earned a rate of return on its investments of 9.2%. Some years it might earn only 1% on its investments. Other years it might earn 20% on its investments. And so when you take the average of that, it's about 9.2%. Now, of course, these numbers are skewed somewhat because of the last 4 years and what the economy looked like over the last 4 years. Yeah. But yes, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through some of these questions here, if you don't mind, just because they are kind of all over the map. But I know that's the point of doing these webinars, these town halls, is basically to get people's questions answered as they see them. So this may seem from left field, but how would the transition work for those already in CPP? Now, we have not really touched upon that, but Mitch, do you want to maybe take a crack?
I'm going to let Tanner handle that one. That's in his wheelhouse.
That's another great question. And the answer is very simply, if we go back to that Section 3 of that CPP Act we talked about originally, we will see there that there is a subsection that talks about how a transition is to work. Now, I'll see if I can find it quickly, where it's going to be third. What's third year? Go down, Kerry, to, Section 3. Go down to subsection I in Section B there. All of these words, hey? Go up a little bit. Keep going. You're doing great. Even higher up to there. It is right there. Okay. Little subsection I. So you will see there that, again, talking about a province providing a comprehension plan, the government of which has, for the establishment and operation in that province, in lieu of the pension plan itself, of the CPP itself, thereunder, we're skipping ahead to the third line, commencing with the third year following the year in which notice was given to the federal government saying we want our own pension plan, and blah, 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 blah. What we mean to say is when the Alberta government signifies Alberta's intention to leave the Canadian pension plan and start its own Alberta pension plan, a 3-year process is triggered in which all of the necessary infrastructure, all of the bureaucracy required, all of the logistical issues, the negotiations with the feds, and so on, are completed. So that when the 3 years is up, when it's been completed, the transition from the Canadian pension plan to an Alberta pension plan will be seamless. Not presumably, the only difference you would see as an individual, again, this is if we change nothing economically, which again, you'd see larger checks, but suppose everything else stayed the same. The only difference you would find is a difference in the name at the top of the check. It would say APP instead of CPP. So the transition happens very simply, right? For individuals, you won't, will there be a whole new hoopla to go through? No, it has to be simple, and there can't be a lag either. We wouldn't tolerate a 1 or 2 month period in which seniors wouldn't receive their pension checks, right? Because of course that'd be devastating in this economy, in any economy, but especially in this economy. So the transition would be seamless. For individuals, really all you'd have to do is wait for the change in the name at the top of the check. Yep. Very good question.
Dorothy's going to ask another question. Do you know where they invest this money?
Yes, that's another very good example. And of course, Dorothy is talking about the Canadian Pension Plan Investing Board. Where do they invest the money that's left over when all is said and done? And the answer is in a variety of holdings all around the world. The CPPIB, for example, has a very large portion of its investment fund structured in what's called private equity. Private equity simply takes companies and businesses that maybe aren't doing so well. It buys them. It flips them, that is, it increases its production or it changes its business model, whatever it might be, and then it sells that company on the market for a profit. That's what a private equity firm does. That's what private equity is. And so the CPP has some 30% of its fund in that particular area of investment, private equity. But it also invests in real estate, it invests in infrastructure, it invests in different companies, it invests in stocks, it invests all over the place. Just like any other investment manager invests in the markets, in the country, in the economy. So while you can't say, well, it invests, we can't be specific and say it invests 20% in Apple or whatever it might be. It's just like any other investing firm. Yes, it invests all around the world.
Okay. And Harry says it's not the government's job to invest.
Yeah,
we've heard this many times, is that, no, you're right. It's not the government's job to invest. If anything, we want this to be at arm's length, maybe even a football field's length from our pension money.
Yes, that's precisely correct. It is not government's job to invest. Harry is absolutely correct. That's why government cannot be operating this pension plan. It's not the purpose of the Alberta government or of the Canadian government, for that matter, to operate either pension plan, CPP, APP, or otherwise. No, not at all, because the purpose of government or the purposes of government are not the same as the purposes of pension plans. The purpose of a pension plan is to earn money, earn a lot of money, safely, wisely, and make sure the money is there for you when you retire. That's all. So it's not government's job to do. We're in absolute agreement about that. They have to be kept. The pension plan and government have to be kept, as you mentioned, at football field's length. But don't forget that right now, government, the federal government, is trying to influence investment. Justin Trudeau and Freeland and so on have called a meeting, or have in the past called meetings with big pension bosses across the country, including those pension bosses at the CPP, and have told them, we need you investing more in Canadian infrastructure. Like, that's blatant government interference.
That's
so
true.
Government is trying to tell the CPP what to do and what to invest in. Now, to the CPP's credit, they said, actually, we'll invest as we see fit. But nevertheless, it shows that there is political interference right now, or attempted political interference right now, just with investing in the CPP, that has to be rectified and would be with an Alberta pension plan.
You're right.
They're also setting parameters, Tanner. I think maybe you should touch that.
Yeah, sure. So of course, Yeah, you can even talk about the social inequity and diversity inclusion parameters.
That's
Like,
right.
for example, if you go to the CPP's website or the CPPIB, you
Yeah.
will see that they have very specific targets, whether it be green energy targets, the renewable targets, social equity, diversity targets, and so on, that frame how they invest. So one of those targets, again, as I mentioned, being a green energy, and how the fund is actively pursuing a decarbonization approach in their investment. That's what they're working towards because, well, of course, that's what they morally believe. They justify it on the grounds of economics, but the justification is weak. They say it's building towards a strong economic future. There's nothing strong about it, right? It's the exact opposite. But
And
nevertheless,
however, it's a direct attack on our economy as well. So that's another part of this argument.
Sure, certainly it is. Absolutely it is, because you have this direct command. It's in the board's notes. You have this direct command and revelation that the CPPIB refuses to invest, let's say, in oil and gas in Alberta, or is investing less and less and less as they approach this decarbonization future. And in its place is investing in otherwise shoddy investments, right? Green energy investments that aren't making money, at least not without government subsidization, in favor of this particular social plan. But again, that's not the purpose of a pension plan. It's not supposed to push a social agenda. It's just there to make money. That's it. That's all.
So here's one more question. We might do two more, but one more for here. Cindy asks, has the Alberta government done anything with the results of the APP survey we all filled out last September? I've not heard anything about any results or if they have narrowed down any of the options. Thank you.
Nor have I. Have you guys heard anything? I haven't heard anything about the survey that they filled out.
We have not heard anything. As a matter of fact, all we know is that there was a campaign blitz done in September or October of last year, and the current UCP government has not really done anything beyond that in terms of a pension plan, which is why we got together and said, you know what? If they're not going to do something, I think us as concerned citizens need to step up and try and figure things out, which is basically how the Alberta First Pension Plan group came to be. So again, not really sure if the government has even come out with a statement on anything. Mitch, do you know any?
No, I'm not aware of it. Not at all.
Well,
as a matter of fact, I think they've been strangely silent on it since they did that ad program. Apparently, it was a $7 million program as well.
Yeah. So you know what? That's something we will definitely look into for the next episode. I think that would be a great thing to see if we can find out anything online, or if anybody knows anything, please get a hold of us. You can always get a hold of us. Again, go to our website. I'll just throw that back up on here again, just because it's such a nice website. Go to the albertafirstpension.ca and send us a message. And I'm just going to throw up a couple. So that's the website address, albertafirstpension.ca. You can also get a hold of us at albertafirstpension@gmail.com. That also goes right to us, and we can answer some of those questions as well. Let's do one more question. This is a good one, and I've heard this a few times. If Alberta gets the APP, can it be revised for any reason, like if a different party is in power?
Well, I would hope not. I think that when we're building it, if we, and we should have a say in it. I don't mean us personally, but I mean Albertans should have a say in it. That it should be bulletproof. And again, that's something that we're going to have to take care of ourselves. I really don't believe that the CPP is under attack from a different party when they're in power. So I think we can at least match that. And it's always going to be incumbent on us to keep an eye on this pension plan or any of our money in the future. We're seeing the government abuse of those powers right now in spades. What's happening in Ottawa. So I think those of us that are involved, and should be all of us, should be aware that it's our civic responsibility to keep an eye on that money. All of it.
Excellent. Tanner, any last comments that you want to make before we sign off and then get ready for another exciting episode of the Alberta First Pension town hall that we'll be doing in 2 weeks?
None, except this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We try and make, it's such a serious topic. And like you said, just scrolling through, if anybody wants to go through the pension plan, I know Tanner has gone through it already. It tests your will. Yeah, it's a test of patience and will, no doubt about it. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you went through it, and again, it's kind of like anytime we go out and we talk to people that are really interested in certain things, and then you ask them, well, have you done your homework on it? And I can actually say Tanner has done his homework. Have I done my homework? I've done quite a bit of homework on it. I'm much more well-versed in pensions over these last few months than I ever thought. And I actually worked for an insurance company for a number of years too. I ended up having to go through, I'm not even sure if they still call it LOMA. It was the life insurance, blah, blah, blah. And I had to go through those courses, and we learned about investing and pensions and all that stuff. So I had a little bit of knowledge about it, but wow, when it comes to pension, and again, this CPP is different than what I would call, or actually, what would you call like a teacher in pension? Something that's put aside specifically for a unionized group or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a defined benefit pension. The CPP is a social insurance. It's an open pension. It's a social insurance plan. It's more accurate to call it that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, so with the amount of money that the pensioners would be getting is a lot less than if they ended up taking that money and investing it on their own. And that's, I'm going to leave that because that will be the next topic that we're going to be talking about. How the CPP is not doing everything in its best power, but if it was brought back to Alberta, we would be able to do it to benefit all Albertans. So with that, I'm going to thanks again, Tanner and Mitch, for doing this. And we will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Please, if you can, don't forget to go to the website and click on that sign up now button. Sign up. And if you've already signed up, thank you so much. But make sure that your friends and relatives and anybody else that you know can do that. Just go up and you can copy that URL, or just go here, copy it, email it, or text it to everybody. And they will be forever in your debt, because this is something that we should do. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind that we should be able to bring this back. So
me too.
Once again, thank you very much, and we will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Have a great night.